please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody, so I know I said I wasn't going to be doing playoff predictions until after the play-in round and we actually knew what the playoff matchups were going to be, but I've done my predictions for the play-in rounds. I've done my predictions for the top four seeding in the East and the West, so I figured why not do a playoff predictions based off of my previous predictions for the play-in round and the top four seeding. So this is going to be my 2020 NHL Stanley Cup playoff predictions, way too early edition because we don't know what the actual matchups are going to be because those other things haven't happened yet. But this is going to be based off of my previous predictions. So say I get everything right with the top four, say I get everything right with the play-in rounds, then this is what I think is going to happen. And I'll do regular, more official playoff predictions at the beginning of the playoffs, but I figured this would be fun to do, like a way too early edition, and just base it off of my previous predictions. So if you haven't watched my play-in round predictions yet or my top four seeding predictions yet, I would advise you to go do that if you care what they are. But basically, I have in the West, the 1 seed being the St. Louis Blues, the 2 seed being the Colorado Avalanche, the 3 seed being Vegas, the 4 seed being Dallas. And then moving on from the play-in round, I have the Edmonton Oilers over Chicago. I have the Nashville Predators over Arizona. I have the Vancouver Canucks over Minnesota and the Calgary Flames over the Winnipeg Jets. And then in the East, I have I've got the 1 seed being the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 2 seed being the Boston Bruins, the 3 seed being the Washington Capitals, and the 4 seed being the Philadelphia Flyers. And then moving on, I have the New York Rangers moving on over the Carolina Hurricanes. I have the Pittsburgh Penguins moving on over Montreal. I have the New York Islanders over Florida, and I have the Toronto Maple Leafs over Columbus. So let's get into my predictions here based on that bracket and what that would look like. Well, it's not really a bracket. It's all by reseeding now. But based on what those matchups would look like and what the playoffs are going to look like if everything that I think is going to happen were to happen. Okay, so here we are. So this is what the matchups would look like if my play-in round and seeding predictions were to come true. Obviously, we don't know if this is what is going to come true or not, but if it does, then this is what the playoff structure would look like. You would have St. Louis versus Calgary, 1 versus 8. You would have 2 versus 7 being Colorado and Vancouver. You would have 3 versus 6 being Vegas versus Nashville, and then 5 versus 4 or 4 versus 5 would be Dallas versus Edmonton. And then the East, you would have 1 versus 11, which would then become 8 because they're reseeding, Tampa Bay versus New York. You have Boston versus Toronto again as the 2 versus Toronto would be originally an 8, would become the 7 because New York moved on. Then you would have the 3 versus 6, which would be Washington versus the New York Islanders. Sneaky good series possibly there. And then Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia as the 4 versus 5. So these would be your matchups. And then so basically I guess I'll start in the West because I usually start in the East with videos, but we'll start in the West this time. St. Louis versus Calgary for me. This one, I just think St. Louis is the better team, so we'll go ahead and move them on here. I just straight up think St. Louis is the better team, so we'll put them there. I think St. Louis moves on beyond Calgary. The Flames maybe could pull. They're a team that usually loses early in the playoffs for whatever reason. Maybe they could pull something crazy off, but I don't necessarily see that happening. I think the Blues are just too good of an all-around team, and that they'll move on beyond the Calgary Flames. This next matchup, we have Colorado versus Vancouver here. Listen, Vancouver, I'm very, very high on. Colorado, I'm very, very high on. This is a great, incredible matchup of 2 up-and-coming young teams who are going to be really, really big players in the NHL and contenders going forward. Colorado, I think, is a couple years ahead still of Vancouver. Colorado is now fully out of the rebuild and into Stanley Cup contender mode. Vancouver kind of just coming out of the rebuild. This is their first time making the playoffs, so in a number of years. So I think Colorado is the better team. They're a little bit further along in the process than Vancouver. And Vancouver, generally you need to go through the aches and pains and the losing in the playoffs before you start winning in the playoffs. Colorado has done that. They lost in the first round a couple years ago. They lost in the second round last year. I think now they've taken that experience in those losses and they're able to make a deep run this year. Whereas Vancouver, this is their first time back in the playoffs since 2015. So, Vancouver's got to go through those growing pains. It's going to be a great series, but I have Colorado moving on. So Colorado moves on there. Now they will not be the team. If this was a bracket, then yes, they would be playing St. Louis, but this is not a bracket. So these matchups are going to be different. I'm actually just going to move that because we don't know exactly yet what the matchups are going to be. As far as Vegas and Nashville are concerned, you guys know I'm very, very high on Vegas. I've got Vegas winning this one. I love this Vegas team. I think their defense is much, much better now with Alec Martinez in the picture. I think their top six is probably the best top six in the league with Stone, Stastny, Pacioretty, Marchessault, Smith, and Carlson. I mean, that's an unbelievable top six. And then obviously they've got the goaltending duo of Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Leonard, two of the top goalies in the league. So I really think Vegas, gets by Nashville. I think Vegas has a chance to make some serious noise in these playoffs. So, that brings us to Dallas versus Edmonton. And this is an interesting one. This is going to be the first one where I take the lower seed. But I am taking the Edmonton Oilers here. I am taking the Edmonton Oilers. Listen, Dallas has some great defense and in goaltending. They're a great, structured team. They don't give up a lot of goals. But completely shutting down Edmonton with Draisaitl and McDavid is going to be very difficult to do. And I just don't know if Dallas can score enough. They were so bad offensively this year. I don't know if they can score enough. And that really, really worries me heading into the playoffs where, a team like Edmonton, I mean, something's different about Edmonton this year. I feel like they actually have a shot this year. Like they could really make a run. And I don't know. I think they've finally gotten their defense together. I mean, the Ethan Bear is ready. Caleb Jones played pretty well. They added Mike Green as a good veteran guy for depth and at the deadline. I mean, I feel like Edmonton, they've always had the offense. As long as they've had Draisaitl and McDavid, they've had the offense. I feel like where they've really, really struggled was defensively. And now this year, it seems like they've kind of got it together a little bit defensively. So I think Edmonton is a dangerous team without a doubt. And I've got them beating Dallas there and moving on. So let's head over now to the Eastern Conference first round and see what happens over there. First up, Tampa Bay versus the New York Rangers. Listen. I'm big on the Rangers. I love their future. I love the direction that they're headed in. I think Tampa gets this one done. And Tampa has a lot to prove after what happened last year. Tampa has a lot to prove after what happened last year. So I really think the Lightning are not going to let that happen again. They're not going to lose to a low seed like the Rangers. And listen, the Rangers, they're in a similar situation to Vancouver where they're just not there yet. They're not ready yet. You have to go through the losing in the playoffs before you win in the playoffs. And I think the Rangers are a team that's almost there, but still a year or two away, and not ready to make that deep run yet. Next, we have Boston versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. And this one, I mean, this isn't even because I'm a Bruins fan. I'm taking Boston here. This is just because until I see them do it, until I see Toronto do it and actually beat Boston in a playoff series, I'm just not going to pick them to do it. I mean, it's year after year after year of Toronto losing in the first round. And I have no confidence in their ability to win in the first round. I think Boston's a more complete team. Sure, Toronto's got better offense. They've got more skill up front. But, Boston's top line is unreal, and Boston, I think, is significantly better defensively. Like, they're not even in the same ballpark defensively. Boston's significantly better. So, I got the Bruins beating the Maple Leafs in that one. And I'm going to continue to pick the Maple Leafs. Doesn't matter who they play. I'm going to continue to pick the Maple Leafs to lose in the first round until they give me a reason not to. Because over the last 3 years, they have not given me a reason not to. So, until they prove that they can do it, I'm not going to be picking it. Dallas, what the hell am I talking about? New York versus Washington up next. So we have the Capitals versus the New York Islanders. Listen, the Islanders had a very strange year this year. They were very good early in the season, very kind of not good the rest of the way, or at least at post All-Star break, they really, really started to struggle. I don't see the Islanders making that deep of a run. I think Washington's the better team. Washington got knocked out early in the first round last year to Carolina. I don't think they're going to let that happen again. I really, really think that they're going to come back with a vengeance this year, and they're going to get it done over the Islanders. And then that leaves us with the Battle of Pennsylvania, the Flyers versus Penguins. And usually this is a Penguins, Penguins are the favorite in this series. This year's different. Something is different about the Philadelphia Flyers this year. I have them moving on. I think they could make a serious run. It's gonna be interesting. And I just noticed that through the first round, I am pretty much taking the higher seed in every one, except for the Edmonton series. So that's interesting. I'm just doing this off the cuff right now. I didn't even notice that, but I'm taking the higher seed every single time. So these will probably be wrong. This is probably what's not actually going to happen. But maybe this is the year, after seeing so many upsets over the past couple of seasons, maybe this is the year that the favorites actually do win. And it comes down to who just is the better team. And the favorites do get it done because of this layoff and because of everything that's happened. So maybe this is a favorites heavy year. I don't know. But if this were to happen, these would then be the new matchups. You would have Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia in the second round, the 1 versus 4. And then Boston would play Washington as the 2 versus 3. And then in the West, you would have St. Louis would play the 5 seed Edmonton Oilers. And I'm moving these too far over. I still got 2 more rounds to go. And you would have Colorado versus Vegas. So let's give me some more room here, because there's still a couple of rounds to go. I should have maybe done this better. But anyway, moving on. Now, second round, we have St. Louis versus Edmonton. Teams don't go back-to-back. I'm taking the Edmonton Oilers. I know that might be a crazy thing, but I'm taking the Edmonton Oilers. There's something about Edmonton this year. I don't know what it is. There is something about Edmonton. It feels like I should be taking the Oilers. I like them this year. I don't know why. I'm taking Edmonton to move on there. And in the other series, I'm taking Colorado. I know I'm very, very high on Vegas. I think this is the year, though. I think this could be the year for Colorado to make maybe even a cup win, or at least a cup run. There's been something about them all year. It's like I need Colorado in that picture, in that not only contender spot, but maybe even favorite spot. And then over in the East, we've got Philadelphia versus Tampa Bay. I think Tampa gets it done in that one. Listen, the Flyers had a very, very good year this year, but Tampa, I think Tampa is the best team in the league. They're the best built team in the league. They're the best roster on paper in the league. If they can get by the first round, and I think it's going to be a mental hurdle for the Tampa Bay Lightning to get by the first round. If they get by that first round, and all of a sudden everything that happened last year doesn't matter anymore, I really think that they're become probably the favorite and could make a serious run. And then as far as the 2-3 matchup, I've got the Washington Capitals. Just simply, Boston never beats Washington. Look at Boston never beats Washington. It's always I mean, I think Boston has beaten Washington like twice since 2014 or something like that. I mean, the Bruins just never can win against the Capitals, and I certainly don't think they can win enough in a playoff series to beat them in a 7-game series. So I'm taking the Capitals there, and that brings us to our conference finals here, which would be the Edmonton Oilers versus Colorado Avalanche, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning versus Washington Capitals. And believe me, I would love to see these as the conference finals. That would be a lot of fun. Talk about two great series. This is where the magic runs out for the Oilers. I think the Avalanche move on to the Stanley Cup final. And then in the East, I think the Tampa Bay Lightning move on. Again, once they get by that first round, I think that mental hurdle is gone. And all of a sudden, you have the Tampa Bay Lightning as one of the best teams in the league, able to make a serious run. And that brings us to a Stanley Cup final between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. What a final that would be. That would be so much fun to watch. High-paced, lots of action, great offense on both sides. At the end of the day, though, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Lightning, so we'll bring them all the way down here. I think your 2020 Stanley Cup winner, after the whole Corona thing and the season shutting down, ends up being the Tampa Bay Lightning, coming out of the Eastern Conference and beating the Colorado Avalanche in the finals for a Stanley Cup win, their first one since 2004, and they avenge what happened last year with the obvious very disappointing first-round exit, and Tampa Bay gets it done this year. So, again, these are just my way too early predictions based on my seeding and my play-in round predictions, but it's always fun to look at predictions. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to my Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.